I'm Supermoon Tarot, and in today's video we're going over pick a card and chill, and this is for a very specific reason. So during this time of year, or any time of year where it's transitional, this is when we start to check in with ourselves. We create goals, we create ideas where we look at where we've gone reflectively from the last time we transitioned. We ask ourselves, where do we want to go next? And we start to make markers and lists and that type of thing. But the thing is, this can become a form, while positive in notion, you start to view yourself in form of measurements. And it's like you're going past a river and you're viewing each thing as this very, jarring jump to the next step, jump to the next step. And there can be, potentially judgment of yourself if you don't make it to the next step, and viewing things only in this one way. And when you're transitioning, it's already something you notice. You notice through energy, you're starting to reflect on yourself as a person depending where you're at in life and that type of thing. And so things feel bigger than they might be. And instead of enjoying who you are now and who you're, growing into, it's this like, am I good enough? Is it good enough? What should I accomplish next? It can start to create this anticipation feeling. And going back to that river sort of metaphor, transitions can feel like you're lying down in the river. The river is sort of flowing through you. You can feel this energy pushing through you. And so you can still accomplish all your goals, you can still be reflective, but it's about allowing the universe to work out the way it's going to work out. And I'm not saying you can't manifest and change things, of course. I'm always welcoming of those concepts, and that is how it works. You're supposed to do that. But it's this idea of when you make a marker or a goal, or I'm going to do this thing next, turning off your brain in between then, just allowing yourself to be present until that moment arises. And then when that moment arises, you're not constantly repeating in your head a list of what you're going to accomplish next, but instead present for that. And instead, as you transition, you're more self-aware of the transition, the joy of that energy, the joy of who you are becoming the next version of yourself in this time of year, rather than seeing yourself as winning or losing, accomplishing or not accomplishing, and again, potentially any form of judgment, because sometimes we unfairly view ourselves. So this is more about loving yourself, feeling more relaxed, and potentially changing your perspective of how you view transitions and productivity. So removing this perspective, or viewing it another way, I guess is the best way I want to put it, can actually make you in the long term more motivated, more inspired, and productive longer, rather than feeling sort of ups, downs, burnouts, that type of thing, and getting in your head when there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, and the whole process can be very fun and exciting. So again, this reading is meant to be very relaxing. We're going to just see whatever pops up. I'm keeping it pretty open-ended, but I'm down to look at anything that can help with the transition. We're just going to kind of vibe and relax and trance out, and that type of energy going on in the reading. So this would definitely be good to enjoy with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Maybe you've got those list of ideas you would like, or a Pinterest board, or a bullet journal, anything kind of next to you, so you're sort of putting the intention of being like, yeah, I'd like to work towards some things. Maybe before you do this reading, write down a couple of goals you have or something like that, whatever it may be. But anyways, in addition to that reading, if you would like to support me, I have a Patreon where I put exclusive content over there. And I actually just posted, in addition to this video posting, a video about cats and a video about the ocean. We go into the sacred geometry, or the formula that's in the Akashic Records representing these ideas. We talk about the spiritual meaning. This is actually a very common thing I do over on my Patreon. Regularly, people ask questions about what they'd like to explore more, and I go to the Akashic Records and I talk to my spirit guides and all that good jazz to get even deeper. And we look at not only the meanings of these things, but we try to extend that idea and how it integrates into our regular life, because that's the beautiful thing. Everything is sort of running into each other, and when we can break it down individual ideas, it definitely helps in the long run to make sense of that concept. So if you'd like to enjoy either one of those videos or all the other videos, I have them over my Patreon. Also on my website, I have a long list of all this stuff on my Patreon. So again, if you want to understand what that is and other content, you can see that over there. But in addition to that, I am so excited to say, as you hear me say every video when I talk about my intuition training course, my tarot training course, I have actually updated it. You can again go over to my website and see the update. But it is so awesome because it has a lot of additional information and work. It's got actually within it a writable parts of it, as in like you can interact and write directly within the piece of the workbook itself, where you can do exercises and checklists to integrate the information deeper, to break down, again, not like unlike what we were talking about in the Patreon, much more simplified ideas so you can understand the concepts better before looking at it as an entire whole. And honestly, I'm just really happy and excited about, because I already love these things that I've created. Their foundations I use in my daily life all the time. When you hear me talk about the spirit realm and the way that I interact and get information, you're learning it from the intuition training course. If you want to know about how you can get something in a more tangible form and get into that type of speaking through spirit guides in a different way, that's through the tarot training course. Both go beautifully together, but I'm just really passionate about them, so I took them to that next level. For anybody who's already enjoying them, I sent you a little special email, so you should go check that out. Anyways, thank you for listening to me talk about all that and all my passions. I really appreciate it. But let's go back to our original reading. We've got group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. In these 4 groups, again, you're getting into that just chill energy. Take a moment to pick the group that you resonate with most. Now that you have, let's go down to the description where you can go to your designated group and its marked timestamp. And let's get started with group number 1. Group number 1, let's find out your pick a card and chill by looking at the cards. We have 10 of Swords upright, 2 of Cups in reverse, Page of Swords in reverse, 4 of Wands upright, and 5 of Swords upright. Give me one moment to consult my spirit guides and look at the details as well. Okay. Okay, I love this. Something really fantastic about this reading is going on over here with these 2 cards. So if you're familiar with my tarot training course, I talk about the idea of good or bad cards, traditionally sort of depicted that way. And talking about how those can actually have the opposite meanings at times, and we want to try to allow our perception to be as open as possible so we, don't miss out on a message just because we only interpret things as quote unquote bad. Like you could have a bunch of like negative-ish cards and it can still be a completely positive reading, or the same thing with a bunch of cards that are traditionally very positive could talk about things maybe you didn't anticipate. So let's first start with the 10 of Swords upright. In this card reading over here, each sword is supposed to represent this idea of a thought. But this thought is very specific. It's anything with a certain amount of pressure behind it. So you want to accomplish something, but you have sort of a time or a date behind it. Or an expectation that you're hoping if you do X, Y, and Z, it will give you A, B, and C. And whatever it is, while it's well intended to move forward and there's a certain level of comfort in the control of being like, okay, I'll think about it, I'm organizing it both mentally and maybe you're putting it on a list or something like that, it's creating an unnecessary amount of, again, pressure on you. Over here, each of these swords are representing how it sort of creates another thought, then builds upon you, creates another thought that builds upon you. And this figure cannot even get up. And to a certain level, you're unintentionally adding this anxiety and pressure upon yourself that you don't need to do. So the cool thing here is my spirit guide was saying that what the best solution in this particular case so that you can still get things done and get excited is follow more of your feeling rather than constantly repeating like a thought and then putting like a date and a time and what you hope onto it. You're going to more follow like right now, like you're going to clear your head, not think about it, and then every now and then tune into yourself and say, do I feel like working on that thing at this moment? Does this feel like a good time? And if you say to yourself, well, I never feel like working on it, but I have to get it done, take a second. You're in a certain thought process and you're only going to be able to see it through that lens. Just take a moment, take 2 hours to watch your favorite show or go for a walk or something like that and check in on yourself. You would be surprised what you feel inspired and when you feel inspired to do it and how much faster the process will go, how much more seamless it is. And if during the time period you're working on it, so let's say you need to work on it this very moment and you're working on it, if during it you're starting to feel that sensation where you're going over the list in your head, you're going over the pressures, that's when you're going to want to take a pause, go, I'm not feeling this right now, and go do something else. And again, you're going to teach yourself that you will get it done, you can trust yourself, and you're just essentially checking in with yourself constantly and saying, am I feeling relaxed? Am I vibing with this? If not, let me just take a second. Let me take a 30-minute break. Let me take a 2-hour break. Let me take a 2-day break. You're going to eventually, from enough practice, learn that the pressure you put on yourself was unnecessary and that a lot of things on those lists don't need to get done when you think they need to get done. And that they can neither take much longer and it's perfectly fine. And in fact, you'll be in a better mood to then be able to accomplish it. But if you think about it in life, we're always working on things and moving towards goals. And that list will technically always be there in one shape or form. So this is building up a really positive relationship. Like you can actually view the list and these goals you have as like an interaction with another person, no matter who it is, like friendship or whatever. And so you're reassociating how you feel about that. And as you start to feel more positive and excited, you'll learn that you don't really need to think about it most of the time. You'll start to realize that you're quite productive all the time because you're not experiencing burnout. Because again, that feeling is coming from the next thought building on the next thought, creating the sense of tension, building and building and building on your unconscious. Again, all you're doing is constantly, I would say every, half hour, just stop, pause amongst your work or whatever you're doing, and you're going to stop and go, how am I feeling? And if in the middle of errands, you're like, I'm not feeling this, go get yourself like a little treat, like a little, coffee or tea or snack or something like that. And just take a moment to people watch and hang out and vibe and that type of thing. And then check back in with yourself. Do I feel like doing now? Can it get done tomorrow? And always catch yourself if you're like, no, I can't get it done. Stop. Those are those thoughts speaking to you. Now, moving on from those feelings into this, we have the Two of Cups in reverse, which is representing this idea of needing to develop more individuality. Now, let me just double check with my spirit guides real quickly if this other person exists right now. Okay, no, they don't exist right now, but it's just a general sense of wanting to feel a certain sense of reassurance by being like someone else. And what I mean by that statement is there's a comfort. So in here in the imagery, they're sharing their drinks, they're sharing their mindset, they're sharing their style. There's a lot of intertwining between these two individuals. And there's, again, this reassurance of like, I know I'm doing what I feel confident in or where I'm moving towards or whatever that is because I look over and I have someone else who shares that. Now, again, it's not a particular individual you're sharing this with, but you're being asked right now to focus more on individuality. That sometimes there's a sense of uncertainty when you're doing something and you can't look around at somebody else who's doing the same thing as you. But that doesn't mean that it isn't not only the right thing for you, but often individuals who sort of stand out amongst the crowd definitely make waves. You know, they're the ones that everyone ends up wanting to follow and do what they do. So there's a lot of positivity that comes behind it. But it's that first kind of couple steps of saying, if I, wear this outfit, if I make this decision and I can't look around and see anybody to agree with it, that doesn't still mean it's not a good idea. So again, it's not that you're currently it's not about copying anyone, nothing that you're doing in that regard. It's just realizing that if you don't get that reassurance by seeing it in someone else, no matter what that topic or idea or action is, that doesn't mean you shouldn't still just turn to yourself and say, well, you know what? I want to do it. I'm going to just try it and see what this, where this goes. I love that, by the way, because I think this is one of those subtle things that pops up in pretty much everyone's life. You have an opinion and then you look around and you're like, well, no one else feels this way. I'm going to keep that to myself. So I love that sort of checking in with you and that extra boost of my spirit guides being like, go for that individuality. You clearly have something that should be explored there. Wouldn't pop up in the cards if it wasn't necessary. Now going on, this sort of individuality and standing up for yourself, I'm going to ask real quickly if these two are intertwined. No, they're not intertwined. Okay, but they feel like they're intertwined. So I'm going to show you real quickly this imagery because it's important. So in this particular case of the reading of the card, it's representing this idea of somebody standing up for themselves and what they believe in. You can see the way they're like, hey, pretend the viewpoint of this individual and the cat is looking back and saying like, hey, this is what I think I want to focus on. This is over here, the books are representing the subject they care about. And they're like, hey, this is what I care about. This is what I want to focus on. I deserve to be able to focus on it. Or let's say someone's telling them they're inexperienced. They're like, too bad. I still think I have the right to go study that or be aware of that, whatever that is. Now, in this particular case and scenario, in their pursuit to stand up for what they believe in, that's the main overarching theme that is going to happen. This is sort of like a peeking into the future type of scenario. In this particular scenario, this person in their pursuit to do that starts to lose their focus on the subject at hand. It's like they become more focused on attention-wise and stuff towards just saying no to the other individual or party that's saying that they can't do something or whatever, that puts them in the position of needing to stand up for themselves. And they kind of, along the way, aren't actually taking the time to study or give attention to what they were initially passionate about. But I'm happy to say for your scenario, this is reversed. Now this is, I was double checking with my spirit guides because I was like, are you saying they should focus on this? My spirit guide said, no, they're going to naturally do this, which is while you were saying to someone like, hey, too bad what you have to say, this is why I deserve to feel this way or deserve to study or look into this or check this out, despite the odds, despite the other person's or party's opinions or whatever, you're still actually incredibly focused on your again, we're just going to use an example as like a hobby or something like that. And what I love about this, and is so important, is that this is where something that starts off as a positive thing, like in this particular scenario, becomes kind of unintentionally, I don't want to say negative, just missing the point. It's like they lose themselves in the argument and the sort of going nowhere type of conversation that the other individual is sucking them into rather than them staying the course of whatever they're into. But in this scenario, whenever we focus our energy towards ourselves, whatever it is we want to focus on, you're essentially feeding it, if you will. And the more you feed it, the more powerful it becomes, the stronger it becomes. And as it grows and grows, it becomes sort of this magnet, if you will, or something that pulsates. It magnetizes what you want, more of, positive attention. It magnetizes other opportunities along that line to come your way. But it also very easily drowns out the people who are opposing it. It drowns out the sort of obstacles or limitations. And all you're telling the universe over and over again is, this is what I want. This is what I'm into. So not getting lost in what other people are trying to sort of drive your attention somewhere else is a beautiful thing. So it shows you not only being passionate and being given an opportunity by the universe to say, you're basically in so many terms by having this interaction declaring to the universe, this is the thing I care about. I deserve it. But you're also saying to yourself and building a certain level of confidence and telling yourself, yeah, you know what? I do care. I do want to do this. And that seems really small and just kind of like an idea that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. But that's the type of thing that keeps the motivation and the inspiration and the certainty to not only continue in the longevity with it, which has a longevity vibe behind it. Let me just double check my spirit guide. Very longevity. Ooh, I love that. This is the beauty of working with spirit guides. This card doesn't necessarily talk about longevity. I'm feeling longevity. They confirmed it's longevity. Love it. Can't stress enough how much I love this. Anyways, but in turn, you are learning a valuable lesson that as long as you focus on what you're passionate about, everything else sort of goes away and all that is left is what you're excited about. And I love that for you. So it seems like you're it's got a lot of subtext behind it. You're finding what you're interested in. You're really finding your inner voice for yourself. You're finding your confidence and certainty. You really are building up a really unique ability that I can't stress enough is often just is understated. Like people don't talk about it enough, but being able to just keep that focus on whatever you're interested in despite the surroundings. And you're just going to keep building and building and building it up in the long run. So I love that. Now over here, it's funny. These are all separate, but there's a lot of energy I see that makes sense that runs into the next one. They're not connected, but I can see how they're connected on like a subtext kind of level. So over here, we talk about that building up sensation I was saying over here, like here, the individuality, then that individuality is being enacted. And then over here, it's like you're amping it up. And then that idea of sort of that radiating kind of feeling where it's expanding out and affecting your surroundings really gets called upon here in the Four of Wands upright. So in this particular case, my spirit guide said that this involves you and another individual. So you're going to want to go find a friend or something. Can it be romantic? Yes. Okay, cool. Of course it can. Because it's less important about what the relationship is. You can pick whoever you want. It's more the idea in the card itself. So these individuals are really finding that little fun in life. You know what I mean? They're the people that find the mundane a little more exciting. They turn it into a little event, a little photo shoot, a little activity, something that maybe normally even they themselves or the surrounding peers just are kind of like, yeah, whatever, and don't find it as big of a deal. Basically, you're sort of bringing the party, if you will. Now, what happens is this sort of natural energy. Again, this sort of celebration feels very everyday. Like I keep being shown images of like, I don't know, you randomly, spontaneously go to like a car show or something like that. It's not particularly your thing normally, but you just go there and suddenly it becomes like a little event for the day and you're telling another friend about it and then that friend is like, oh, you make it sound fun. I wish I had gone. And you go there and you end up getting some free poster and it just becomes a fun little moment. That's what I mean by like that sense of energy and excitement. It feels like it's being brought between you and a friend or you and someone else, but it's like a vivaciousness. Now here's the really cool part. What happens is it is going to naturally on its own spread out and start affecting your environment and your peers around you. So what happens is think of yourself as like a little star or a sun, if you will. And everything that comes in that radius of the star of that you are is going to naturally get excited, add to what you're putting out, and essentially your little perspective of the world is always creating this energy, this excitement, this spontaneity, this sense of fun, and no matter where you're moving, it's traveling with you. But here's the really cool thing is, just like negative emotions, positive ones can also be contagious and sort of have a residual energy afterwards. So not only does your world, just wherever you go by default, because you're the center of it, you're creating this atmosphere that's affecting everything around you, is just fantastic in the moment. But let's say you run into your neighbor or something like that, right? And normally it's like, it's okay, it's whatever it is. But then now, when you cheered them up one day, they saw you had a funny little banter back and forth, suddenly they're really kind of feeling like upbeat whenever they see you. And now they maybe they were sweet and gave you a coupon or some free food, and now you have some free food, and suddenly every time you leave and do your thing, you're feeling really happy and excited because you feel like you're building a community. And then it's this sort of continuous effect where the people in your world that keep benefiting from your sort of residual energy that you're putting out there, it's not just in the moment, it's like this magical day that you're like, wow, I really built some memories, this was fun, this I felt like my world became more expansive rather than dull and every day and nothing happens, becomes more everlasting. And the cool thing is to remember is that your environment is whatever you're experiencing immediately, day to day, as you're going on and on. So essentially, you can really take that to the next level, especially as you're sort of building up that energy with someone else, and then it's sort of leaking over into everyone else. But it creates a residual energy that, as you continue to add to it, whether you're in that mindset or not, will naturally get reflected back to you. And you're just naturally helping your environment and community by you being you. And who doesn't love that? And then last but finally, this is a little bit of an odd one, but hear me out for this one. It shows up in the cards for a reason. So my spirit guide was saying that this is supposed to be representing of you winning. Like, you're doing really well. Things are working out for you. We already talked about how things are working out for you here, and even you overcoming this and in that mindset. But then over here is that sort of comparison vibe again that we talked about in the Two of Cups. And even I would say when we're in a Ten of Swords mindset, we're definitely comparing ourselves to society or expectations in that kind of way. But in this particular case, this is you acknowledging and being like, wow, I'm doing really well. I'm so thankful these things are working out for me. But also simultaneously acknowledging when it's not working out for other individuals. Now, this is feeling like that sort of vibe of, like you're not really focused intensely. It's not one of those circumstances where you're like, haha, they didn't get this and I got this. It's not like that energy. You might look over and have a thankful moment of being like, wow, I see that happened. I'm really thankful that this is the way it is for me, because now I see that there's a possibility it couldn't be. So there's like an acknowledgement and a gratefulness behind it. But it is a little bit something you want to be aware of and focus on, because what first starts is just a self-aware thing. You're acknowledging the world and yourself and individuals and all the possibilities, because that is what you're doing. You're becoming aware of all the concepts and what could be. Can become you a little too focused on other people. And that is where it gets to be something that by the time it adds up and it really counts, you're going to be like, man, I wish I had kind of kept this in check. And what I mean by when I say that is, let's say you're constantly comparing yourself, being like, oh, okay, well, I did do pretty well and they didn't. Okay, you know what, I'm doing better than I thought. And then over time, what's going to happen if they're doing very well and you feel that you're not up to par to them? Or what if you unconsciously in some weird way start to compare yourself in such a manner where if they start doing well, and maybe they're not doing as well as you, but you see they're doing well, you're like, oh, I wish I had that new thing. It starts to become like remember how we talked about over here, it's the focusing on yourself, the feeding it, the magnetization. It's like you're not feeding them, but you're sort of pulling away and
essentially not building upon yourself, and that sort of loses its energy. I don't want to say loses its energy, it's like it's not growing the way it could be, and we talked about all the benefits of how it could grow. So again, you want to sort of catch yourself when you're in that mindset and be like, you know what, I'm going to just focus back on me. It doesn't matter where they're at, there's no comparison. Moving on, focused only on whatever's going currently in my world and my life. Because again, it's not only for feeling good in the long run and where you could accidentally misdirect your attention, but it's the main focus about keeping your focus on yourself, keeping your focus on, it's not just like your own gratefulness, it's the idea that the more attention is on it, the more that sort of sun and star version of yourself grows and grows and grows, positively affects your environment, positively affects your opportunities. So why wouldn't you want to do that? You know what I mean? So I'm excited about this. I'm very excited. Lots of good. I hope you feel chill. I hope you feel relaxed, hearing about your individuality, your empowerment, how you're really learning an extremely valuable lesson about through feelings, following them in order to be more productive, and also about and I'm mostly focused on the idea of the more you focus that attention towards yourself, the more it gets expansive and you really see the results of it in other ways. I love this for you. And if you did enjoy it too, please leave this video a like, a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can see all my videos. I'm sincerely wishing you the best. I'll see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 2.
Group number 2. Let's look at your pick a card and chill by looking at the cards. We have the Ace of Swords upright, the Four of Cups upright, the Two of Swords upright, the Star card upright, the Seven of Wands upright. Okay, give me one moment to consult my spirit guides as well as look over the details. And I'll get back to you in 1 second. Just give me one moment. Interesting. You know, there's like a theme going on over here. So I talk about this in my tarot training course, but I talk about theme cards. But in this particular case, it's not that one card is the defining theme, but rather there is a theme popping up in each card. It talks a lot about choices, and we'll explore that idea more as we go over each topic. So first, let's start with the Ace of Swords. Interestingly enough, the Ace of Swords and the Four of Cups have a similar theme and concept. They're just focusing on different sort of sides of the coin, if you will. Okay, so first off, my spirit guide said that you're going to be parting sort of this fuzzy cloudiness that you've been going through. Ace of Swords traditionally talks about mental fog. It can be anything from feeling confused about your decisions in life or feeling just in general, especially with the Four of Cups being here, just generally unmotivated, like nothing's sort of stepping out to you or piquing your interest to move forward. Or maybe you're trying to, in life, make a decision and it's like you can feel you'd like to build some momentum and go somewhere type of thing, and you just can't quite grasp the ladder, if you will. It's like you're almost too disinterested to do it as well. So it's a mix of a bunch of things. But anyways, this is you parting the way through that mental fog by finding and sticking to the truth. Now, we want to be really specific about this. This is the truth of like an idea. And the interesting thing here that my spirit guide was adding on to this idea was that this truth is without judgment from both you or other people. So you're always focusing on, well, what's the truth of the circumstance, and then following that idea forward. And we're talking about putting it into action. So let me try to give you an example to clarify this point even more. An example is, so let's say you're out having a good time with friends and stuff, and you're going out and you're doing your thing. And in that moment, you're like, okay, I'm just hanging out. We're all just vibing. Nothing's intense right now. We're just chatting. Nothing's really getting you excited about the night. It's just a typical night out. But you're like, you would pause and say to yourself, what's the truth in this moment? And let's say in the moment, you feel that you really don't like the song. That's your truth. You don't like the song. You feel like you should be able to change it. And that's just really sticking out to you, that concept. It resonates with you. So, and it doesn't matter. And again, when we talk about lack of judgment, maybe everyone else is really enjoying that song. And for you, you don't normally feel comfortable sort of vocalizing it. You know what I mean? So you would maybe go talk to whoever is in control of the music at the place you're at. And you're like, so you follow that truth and you say, hey, can you change the song? And they're like, yeah, I'll change the song. What do you want it to? And you change the song to what you're really vibing again. Not just whatever, really vibing in. You pick something, and that's where you're picking. And then from there, you're looking out in the crowd and you're sort of making an assessment of what you're experiencing. You're feeling what you're focused on. You're overhearing conversations, and as you're hearing it, you're hearing everybody's opinion, but you're looking at like, well, what is the point blank situation they're discussing? And then you join that conversation. And from that conversation, you point that out. And then from pointing that out and seeing everyone's reaction, you're sort of getting another answer from their reactions, and so on and so forth. You're letting it take you to new locations. You're letting it guide you throughout your night, but you're just constantly checking in with yourself and your surroundings and saying, well, what is the truth? And I want to be clear here. The truth does not, we're not trying to get into a morale thing. Not that that's not wonderful, that everyone has their perspectives and how to help the world and that type of thing, and that is a positive thing. We're talking about just what it is, not sort of the opinion based upon it. I guess there was an opinion based in the example I just used when I talk about the music, so I guess there is a gray area that I'm just trying to make it an example in this moment. But you get what I'm saying. You're following what resonates and feels like the truth in that moment and moving forward with that action. It's something that sort of, and this is something that's great to practice within your own life. This is something also you can really, really learn by being in the spirit realm. That's why a huge reason why I'm always like, go to the spirit realm. It's such an amazing experience, because you're right when you feel it run through you, whether it be an energy or a deep sense of knowing, or maybe you see colors or something. It's something that sort of like hits different. So it's more than just being like, oh yeah, you're right, to being like, no, you've hit something. You've gotten to the point of perspective for yourself. You've really figured out that inner truth of what's going on. So it's that sort of type of resonation you're following from one moment to the next. Anyways, going on with that moment-to-moment truth guiding you without needing to know the clear direction it's going. You just know that it is taking you somewhere and giving some sort of, and one last thing I want to say about this idea with the Ace of Swords is like, sometimes you might not know where you're going or how the path goes, but just by having that sort of clear truth, you're putting like a bulletin board pin in your board and something's defined. And you're following one concept to the next to just create some sense of definition in your life. And then that continues on and on and on until your board starts to become filled. And then from there, you make opinions about that, and so on and so forth. So some food for thought, just thinking about that idea. Now that idea extends over here with the Four of Cups. Now, Four of Cups traditionally represents this idea of boredom and this sense of apathy. But in this particular case, this shows you overcoming that by following the truthful emotion. Sometimes in the moment, the truth feels like you want to express maybe not the most cheeriest emotion. I just want to be absolutely clear. It is not low vibration to feel something that is not inherently positive or happy or cheerful. I want to be clear about that. Talk to my spirit guides about it. I just want to be absolutely clear. You're not like regressing or pulling away from yourself. You just need to sort of sometimes feel those emotions, and maybe sometimes in the moment that's your truth. But sometimes in that same vein, it's about having that conversation with yourself and saying, am I really feeling this, or am I just being reactionary? Do I need to stop and dig underneath here, and how am I really feeling? You know those days when you feel like a couple things go wrong and you're like, oh, this is frustrating, but then when you slow down and you really look at the bigger picture, you're like, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I'm focusing and giving this a little too much attention. And that again is just that same resonating type of feeling. What feels true as an emotion, and checking in with yourself. And it can be really small. I want to be clear. This is something really beautiful. I loved when I discovered it. Same thing with psychic abilities. Things do not have to feel very intense for them to still be valid. You can have lots of psychic hunches or ideas or experiences and not have them not actually be felt or felt very deeply. So when we say identifying emotion, especially when you're coming from a fog, those emotions might not feel very strong, and that's okay. So this would be you checking in with yourself and being like, well, if I ask myself right now, what is a true feeling I feel? And don't say, I don't know. Take a second, look around, ask yourself, do I feel whimsical? Do I feel curious? And just sort of list some things until you're like, well, you know, I do feel kind of drawn towards that, and start exploring that. And just sort of throughout the day, every now and then ask yourself, what is the truest emotion I feel right now? Not what I'm reacting to in my environment. What just feels right? Technically, you could be reacting to your environment and that be associated with the truthful emotion, but it's about you pulling away from how everyone else is reacting and checking in with yourself. And again, it doesn't have to be strong, but it's something. Again, you're pulling and picking that emotion, following the truthful emotion, following the truthful idea, and it's sort of cutting through the fog and moving you forward, which I love for you. And it's also a very eye-opening experience. Oh my goodness, the more you direct your attention to it, well, the more you'll see it. I love it. Going on with that same concept of choices, like we said, see how this idea continues to get expanded upon. So this is really interesting little tiny bit, very simplified concept and information my spirit guide was saying to me. So this is the representation, both traditionally in the card reading, but also in the imagery over here, that this person's making a decision. That's usually what it represents, this idea that they're thinking and weighing the odds between two different things. And often it represents this idea that they need some time to think about it and for subtext in many cases, it's a serious one. Because when you're hesitating to make a decision, often it's because you're like, well, if I make this one, I'm going to go this path, and if I make this one, I'll go another one. So I really want to think this out. Now, what we're actually focusing on is not the decision you'd be making or would make, but this little crow over here. I love how my spirit guide was pointing it out. You can even see the little kitty looking at the crow, which I think is very cute. This is the idea that this crow is sort of watching your back and giving you the space and time to make that decision. They want to support you in making the right decision, so they give you time and space, and they also would like others to do the same for you. My spirit guide said that this is important right now, or just an important person? Both. Let me just double check again. Oh, that my spirit guide said, tell them that that person has something they need to tell them. Interesting. Okay. Well, the first time when I was talking to them before we went to this card reading, my spirit guide was showing me just like the general idea that it's sort of like a good person to your life. That's the person of value. And this is like a hint of their being of value, that when you need time and space to make a decision, they're exhibiting these traits. But in addition to that, my spirit guide said they have something to tell you. Love that. Now going on, what does that have anything to do with the decision? Nothing to do with the decision. Okay, cool. Now the star card. I like how my spirit guide posed this question. Because here's the thing. Not just with spirit guides, But just in general, sometimes it's about digging deeper and looking up the subtext of the question. And just the question is in itself the answer. So my spirit guide said, as you can tell, they would jump into this lake and have a good time and swim around. So they're sort of adding to it different things that will amplify the experience, whatever that may be. Pretend each thing is like a potion that's going to make them more lovely and confident and successful and beautiful and all those good jazz. And my spirit guide just posed the question, why is this individual simultaneously adding to this, what will then be the experience, the lake, and also simultaneously sort of wasting some of that? And in that vein, putting their attention somewhere else where it's not going to add to this experience. And I loved that. That in itself is such a, I think we've all sort of done that in our life at some point. Basically, there is a part of your life, currently or going to be, mostly currently, all currently. Okay, cool. So there's part of you that is doing things that are beneficial for yourself and are adding to it. I want to be clear. It's not just something that it's like, oh, it made me feel better right now, or I feel a little, stronger. You're really adding something that will have a deeper effect in the long run. So you're making some great decisions. But there's another part of you, because this person is not making a mistake. They are consciously pouring it on the ground. Where are you putting your attention to? And I am feeling a strong pull towards an individual. Let me just double check with my spirit guide. Yeah, my spirit guide said, yes, you're correct. It feels like an individual in particular, where like, you're kind of wasting your time and your energy and your focus. And again, it's not this idea, and even my spirit guide said this when they've told me the first time, they were like, no one's criticizing them. It's not a negative thing. It's more just like, well, why wouldn't you want to put all of it towards the direction that is benefiting you most? A good example of this could be anything as more extreme as sometimes we have, romantic prospects that don't go anywhere. Any part of you knows, but you're enjoying the attention, whatever. That's one example. Another example is when an individual, let's say it's like a friendship, and you enjoy the friendship, it's great and everything like that, but they're not your best friend. And sometimes when you talk to them, you're sort of buying time, if you will, and you're kind of having to check in with yourself. And this is nothing negative towards the other person, they didn't do anything wrong, but checking in with yourself and being like, if you don't really want to be here, what are you doing? You could spend this time doing X, Y, and Z, something else, or hanging out with someone you're a little more passionate about hanging out with. That kind of concept. It's sort of checking in with yourself in that kind of way. Now, last but not least, this is very interesting. We have the Seven of Wands representing the idea of trying to fight off the hive mind. I know, kind of wild of a concept. I actually go into a whole detailed thing over on my Patreon where I go into the sacred geometry, what the Akashic Record says about the hive mind. It's a whole thing. But just to give you some sort of an abbreviated form, this is sort of the representation of these bees are trying to get back to their honeycomb, and you are sort of preventing them, if you will. Now, my spirit guide said, this is you trying to push off the hive mind. You're trying to be an individual, and you consider being part of the hive mind a negative thing. But let's be really clear here. We're not talking about the idea of being part of what everyone else is thinking on a social level. Everyone agrees this is the best music artist. Everyone agrees this is the new fashion trend. I'm not saying that as a concept. So on a spiritual level, we actually have hive minds. There's different hive minds, which is really interesting. So bees would have a different hive minds than humans, that type of thing. But when you have that access, it's sort of think of the deepest subconscious, but not just for you, but sort of an entangled, deeper subconsciousness for everybody. Now, the cool thing about it is you can actually access and go in and out of this, like connecting to yourself as an individual, and then the hive mind and different parts of your consciousness, sort of like weaving in and out whenever you want to use them. And that's the whole point of it, is that sometimes it's really great to tap into the hive mind, figure out what is beneficial for the whole or benefiting the society as a whole or whatever, and tapping into that concept because it can benefit you and using it to your advantage. And then when you need to, popping back into your individual self and making decisions from that perspective. And to be fair, honestly, or not be fair is not the right term, to be honest, we naturally dip in and out of these consciousnesses like all the time, in like we're not thinking about it, we're just naturally doing it. But in this particular case, there's a part of you that's wanting to keep your identity so strongly you think you're somehow losing your identity but tapping into the hive mind. But the thing is, each part of yourself, and sometimes it involves being connected to others in a sort of way. Again, we're not talking about everyone else is wearing bell bottoms, you gotta wear bell bottoms. We're not talking about that concept. It's sort of taking a meditative form to ask this question. This is something that can benefit you in the long run when it comes to just interacting with yourself, life, whatever. There's a lot of benefits by coming from certain vantage points, and you can experience them. To get better sort of clarification and understanding of what this means, if you're like, I need to understand this on a deeper level, the number one thing I always recommend is just going to the spirit realm. Asking your spirit guides, hey, could you show me what you mean by like the hive mind? What does that feel like? What would I benefit from that? That alone will do a lot for you. But you can also do something where you just take a quiet moment, you put your hand to your heart and just say, I give myself permission to access the hive mind of my, of my peers and myself. And you're just going to sort of take a moment to be quiet and just let it set in, type of thing. Now, this is something that might not be super obvious depending on how sort of awake you are. We're just going to simplify it. It's a whole thing with the spirit mind, spirit body. I've got that over on my Patreon just to simplify it. But you're sort of tapping into yourself and saying, what does this potentially lead me? And maybe you even set the intention of being like, I'm going to let the next few decisions I make come from that place. So again, you might not know how it feels. You're not awake enough to sort of be able to be fully conscious you're doing it, but you're still doing it. And you're sort of just exploring what that's like. And you might make some decisions you don't normally make. And again, it's not about doing what everyone else is thinking. It's like a deep, deep, deep subconsciousness concept. But anyways, the point is, this will benefit you deeply. So I hope this excites you, because you've got a lot of great choices you're going to be making and changing and thinking about, and it's just a lot of self-awareness. And I cannot stress enough that when you are able to be as self-aware as you are here, a lot of doors open up. Things get a lot easier. Things do not feel like a mystery. You feel like you have a lot more control over your life, the manifestation process, your feelings. Things feel more within your grasp, and you even know why. So I love this for you. It usually makes life a lot easier. And honestly, it's really fun having options and then getting to make decisions. And in these particular scenarios we're talking about, there's such a resonation of like, I made the right decision, compared to in other circumstances people are just simply being like, yep, I choose that. That's the thing I choose. In your case and scenario, you're like, wow, I felt that. That made my day better by just realizing that. So I love this for you. And if you loved this reading, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can see all of my videos. I'm sincerely wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 3.
Group number 3. Let's find out your pick a card and chill by looking at the cards. We have the Queen of Wands. Oh my god. Look at that. Look at her. Look at her little, like, 7 of Swords upright. So funny, that gesticulation. Eight of Pentacles upright, the Four of Swords in reverse, and the Magician in reverse. Oh. Okay. There's definitely sort of, how do I put this? A time in your life, like a vibration, like a mindset I'm seeing already pop up. But give me just one moment to consult my spirit guides and look at the details as well for myself. Yeah. Interesting. You'll see what I mean in a second as we continue to describe and talk about all these different things. But first, let's start with the Queen of Wands. So this is about somebody you really admire and going out of your way to be self-aware of that, and then simultaneously taking on some of those attributes for yourself. So this isn't about full-on copying them or mimicking them. It's more this idea that, and this could be anyone, just someone this could be like a celebrity, it's whoever. But it's this idea where you're being reflective and saying, what is it that I admire about them so much? What is getting me excited or feel like I wish I could be them? And try to look beyond something that feels out of sort of your grasp in this immediate moment. We're more looking for things like maybe it's their air of confidence, like their confidence has a particular flavor, and try to define that a little more. Like, how would you describe it? Does it look like they could do anything whenever they want? Does it feel like there's a certain level of lack of insecurity? Like, how would you define that in a little more definitive terms? And then sort of mimicking that yourself. Maybe you even have fun and go out and buy the same outfit they have or something to get into that headspace, but you're sort of acting, if you will, for yourself and trying that out and getting into that headspace to pick that up. So again, it's this energy that when you see them or you experience them, you're just like in awe, and then taking that on and putting it into practice a little bit in your life right now to get into that headspace, because there is no reason why the things that you admire about them, you can't sort of integrate it into your own life, and then from sort of trying it out, curb it to who you specifically are and take yourself where you want to go and have the life that you want to have. But sometimes when we ask ourselves, how do I get there? This is a great exercise. So you're simplifying the process, you're finding someone you admire, you're kind of defining it, you're getting even a little more detailed about what that definition means, and then you're sort of mimicking it, if you will, getting into that headspace when you're interacting with others and just going about your life to sort of jumpstart your own version of that. Love that. Really positive go-getter energy, especially with what we're going to talk about over here in the Eight of Pentacles. Now, this is really interesting. This one sort of feels random compared to everything else, but nothing is random in tarot, which I love. I'm just going to repeat this as I always do. Tarot, it doesn't make mistakes. It will often talk about things that feel sort of out of left field, and when they pop up, it's important and of great value, so let's pay attention to it. So we have in the Seven of Swords. This is representing the idea, and this is how my spirit guide put it. They said, you're going to go to war with someone and you're going to win, but there's going to be something a little bit left that you didn't fully sort of express, or a little secret to yourself. They don't fully know all the cards you have, so to speak. And I was like, whoa, what does that mean exactly? Well, one, we have subtext that you're gonna win. Yay, woo! This does not feel like negative. This feels like it has a lot of confidence. I'm having a feeling these two are associated, like this is getting you in the headspace to sort of take that on. Am I correct about that? Yes, my spirit guide said yes. So as you can see by this person, they're just like, oh yeah. So essentially, this is you successfully saying, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to get all the advantages, and just you're going to naturally come out on top. But it would be a good idea sometimes when we're sort of like being like, hey, this is why I deserve this, or X, Y, and Z. Sometimes we can express a little too much. And in this particular case, you don't want to give away kind of everything. A good example of this is maybe, and let's say, we're going to actually talk about this in 1 second. Let's say you're starting a new business of some sort, right? And the example here would be maybe somebody is in your particular area is selling something of a similar quality, or not quality, like concept or whatever, right? And you're sort of standing your ground and being like, nope, I'm going to get that space to rent for my business, or I'm going to come out on top being able to be the more alluring option or something like that, whatever that may be. And as you do, and maybe it's a very direct, this is so, by the way, I'm making this almost like a fictional TV show, because usually people just start businesses and everyone's chill and there's enough business for everyone. That's the reality. I'm just giving a over-the-top scenario. But in this particular case, you're like, well, you know why I deserve this business? X, Y, and Z. And you shouldn't have shared Z. Z was your little secret thing that was always going to give you advantage, and them not knowing was the better option. It's that type of scenario. So as you go to pursue and you're standing up and you're being like this, you don't need to express everything that you're thinking and feeling or working on to this other individual to make your points more valid, or even more to convince yourself that it's more of a reason of why you deserve it, or X, Y, and Z. Keep that to yourself, because it is going to be an advantage in the long run. But going on, now we have the Eight of Pentacles. Now this talks about the idea of, right now, my spirit guide said it is a absolutely fantastic time to start a business. Or if within your business you're starting something new, like you're doing a big new component to it, a new feature, a new product, a new idea, whatever that is, it's a really fantastic time. But we want to be a little more specific here, in the sense that when you are launching this idea or starting this business, it's not just the excitement that it's a good time and things are working out in your favor in that degree, but more so you want to focus on sort of the daily way that you're approaching it. So let's say you're a business that starts selling candles. You didn't sell candles before, but now you're going to start selling candles. And instead of getting in that headspace where you're like, if I sell this many candles, it will accomplish this, and this is, you kind of want to be in that practice of just being like zoning out, making the candles. You see what I'm saying here? You just want to vibe with what it is. And if your product is something that you just put it out once and it exists, again, you want to avoid getting in that headspace and instead maybe practice what it is that you put out there. So let's say the product is something like, let's say you made tarot cards. We're just going to use that as an example. Instead of, obviously you've already made them, they already exist, they're already out there. Instead of getting the headspace of counting and getting in that headspace of numbers and lists and that type of thing, you're going to instead just enjoy sitting down with the cards that you worked so hard to create, and just kind of like read for yourself, and maybe even have fun and read for some of your friends, and you're just kind of enjoying what it is you created, and you're just chilling out in that regard. So that is going to be something that's really important, and becomes more important as we look at these two cards, because these three sort of run into each other. I mean, the cards technically are all associated with each other, and you can see what I mean as I continue to describe these. There's very much like, it feels like a time period in your life, you know what I mean, like a couple weeks, like this vivaciousness. But over here, this talks about the idea of, if you take breaks at the wrong time, it could kind of come back to bite you. That sounds not chill, but hold on, it can be. Don't worry, we're still sticking to the theme here. So if you see these swords and this individual, the way they are sleeping upside down, they fall on them. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be the prettiest. So what do we mean by taking breaks at the wrong time? So instead of putting yourself in a position where you get amped up, or you're kind of you put yourself in a position where you're borderline, burnt out, and then you're like, okay, I need to take a break. That might be an opportune time where at the last minute, that's when a customer needed you or something, via this business. So what would be better is being in a constant state of calm where you don't need to just put everything down and be in that headspace of full on taking a break when it's an inopportune time. So again, we're not creating constant lists in our head and repeating them over and over again and counting our eggs before they hatch. It's not that you can't dream and hope and wish and put all those things out there. Do that. Put them out there. Be like, I'm very successful. Money comes to me easily. All that good jazz. But it is about slowing down, just hanging out with what you created, being in the daily kind of creation of it, or that it has been created, and you're just vibing. You're relaxing, so you're never sort of building yourself up to that point. Now, going on, we have the Magician card. Now, this one is a fun one. I love these type of cards that have fantastic subtext. So this is about having imposter syndrome and not feeling like what it is you have to offer is good enough. And getting in a little bit of your head about that. That's where sort of that energy and needing that confidence can come in, and suddenly getting in your head so much to compensate that you start to, take a break when maybe it's not the best time to take a break, that type of thing. But here's the cool thing. The Magician card is fantastic because in this particular case and scenario, it's implying that you might feel that way, but you still got the Magician card. You're fine. You're actually fantastic at it. When the Magician card is upright, this is like the ultimate manifestation card. They are very connected to the ability to create something, their feelings, their energies to guide it. They're really good at being able to financially attract it and connect to that idea and all that jazz. They have all the resources at their fingertips and they know what they're doing. You know what you're doing. You're just not allowing yourself to believe in that. And again, if we take that sense of relaxation, if we practice that confidence, if we realize that we always have something to our advantage, that we secretly know what to do, that type of thing, that puts us in a headspace to take time to practice believing in ourselves. Again, you're already there. It's more just that you're realizing that you're already there. This is both the comfort and confirmation that you're doing great. You're doing great, sweetie. But also, in addition to that, it's the idea that sometimes when we believe in ourselves and we talk about building that sense of admiration for ourselves that we see in others, it is an exercise. It is a habit you can build. So it's just a matter of being patient that when you tell yourself, I believe in myself, and maybe you don't initially connect to it right away, that's okay. And that after you say it the 100th time, it will actually feel like it connects, and opportunities that will come your way that will make you connect to that idea through experience will happen. And the sooner you sort of start that process by just exercising it and saying it and exuding certain things that you would like to one day exude naturally, is the first step to get you closer there. So I love this for you. A great time for success, starting creation, but it's all about chilling out, exuding what you want to exude, knowing what you can keep to yourself. You don't need to share everything in order to make your point known, and just realizing that you're killing it. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It helps you see all of my videos. I am wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And let's get ready for group number 4. Group number 4. Let's find out your pick a card and chill by looking at the cards. Go figure. We've got Knight of Wands in reverse. The Magician in reverse, by the way. I love this Magician. She's so cool. I was just thinking about wouldn't it be cool if we wore capes. The Hierophant upright, the 10 of Pentacles upright, and the 4 of Cups in reverse. Give me one moment to consult my spirit guides, as well as to look at the details myself, and I'll be with you in one moment. You're gonna laugh when I tell you this one. Oh. Okay, I love this. Okay. Okay, let's get into this. So this is a very cute one. I love this. So first off, these two are connected and related to the same message. So we have the Magician in reverse, implying this idea of self-imposter syndrome. So one thing I love about the Magician card, it implies that you are actually good enough. You're incredibly good enough. This card isn't showing it, but the Magician has everything at their fingertips of their capabilities and understanding and their finessing of it. But not always does the Magician, aka you, know they are so good at what they're good at. And we're not talking about a particular skill or hobby. We're talking about someone who's able to sort of naturally know what to do when it comes to the energy they put out, to how they, where they spend their money, to emotionally what they connect to and what they follow with that, and so on and so forth. Very multi-talented, and it all coming together to be a very successful manifestation vessel. Just a generally skilled person. But, go figure, you can have all of that and still not feel you're good enough. But here's the cool thing. Not only are you good enough, but I love when my spirit guide said that this is representing. So this is representing in the Knight of Wands dancing. This individual has like a little cane. He's about to do a little step. Now you might be asking, and this is for some clarification for any of my fellow people that either read tarot or are taking my tarot training course. So the Magician card is being read in reverse, giving its more traditional meaning, which we were talking about. But over here in the Knight of Wands, it is not being read in reverse for its imagery, but being in reverse in order to step into the Magician card in order to have an interaction. So that's what's really interesting about the cards. Sometimes you're reading them for more than what they may initially seem, and I love that flexibility. But anyways, so you're gonna get into a little bit of a dancing mood. And I love this. So you're going to make a playlist of all your favorite songs. You're just going to get up and you're going to bounce around. You're going to vibe. You're going to feel like the main character of your life. You're just going to let that energy flow through you. Something really interesting if you are into this, I actually made a video it's a spiritual talks video, but it's on this channel and it's about music, and it goes into great length detail. I highly recommend you listening to that, but actually talks about how music is in fact like a secret language, and that by the music we're sort of resonating with, we're resonating actually with like a dictionary, if you will, like some form of knowledge that is being transferred to us through the vibrations. So it might be a topic about, it could be anything. It could be like the mountains. It could be the idea of association, like literally the concept of association, and you're just vibing with that information. You're like, oh yeah, which is really fun. Actually, you can go the next step, and you could even either travel to the spirit realm with my intuition training course, or if you have your own way of getting to the spirit realm, or you could pull tarot cards. Again, I have my tarot training course if you're interested in that, but you could pull tarot over the spirit realm and ask, why this song? What does it mean? What am I vibing with? And just really go the next level, which is really fun. But anyways, you're going to dance your little heart out, make that regular thing you're doing every day. Take a little bit of time to dance to your absolute favorite songs. No lukewarm songs you want to dance to, any era, whatever. And this is going to help build up your energy and build up your confidence so you don't have such imposter syndrome, which is really fun because sometimes the solution isn't just focusing on the opposite, like just trying to constantly reassure yourself. Sometimes it's sort of just getting you out of your head, which I love. Super fun solution. Now, going on here, my spirit guide told me in the Hierophant, you're actually very educated. The thing we want to be clear here is education comes in many forms. You do not have to be someone who has gone to school or has finished school or has had a lot of it in order to be somebody who is very educated, especially nowadays with YouTube and our access to any knowledge anywhere. It's wonderful. But you're incredibly intelligent is basically what my spirit guide was saying. You're very knowledgeable. And now is the time to sort of check in with that, realize that, and sort of dig through all of your knowledge in order to use it to your benefit. They even actually suggested, which I thought was kind of interesting as a way to sort of, you're taking a moment of pause and therefore like the imagery, meditating on it, is you can do things like make a video analysis essay, maybe even write down sort of these thoughts and how they interconnect, or just write down purely like facts, or things you're aware of. Things that you might overlook and be like, yeah, I know about that. But you're pausing and being self-reflective and reminding yourself. And this for me feels way less like a confidence thing and more of realizing, it's not like a realizing your worth thing, like it is to a certain degree. It feels more like you're going to use that knowledge. Let me just double check with my spirit guide. My spirit guide goes, yeah, absolutely correct. And so you're sort of checking in and going, wait a minute, I do know a lot about X, Y, and Z. And remember, it doesn't have to be a particular subject. Despite what society might force us to think, you are allowed to be knowledgeable in multi-topics. You can know about cars and you can know about painting and you can just vibe and talk about anything, but you're going to use it to your benefit. So that's something to be clear about. And you're taking a moment to really explore that, tap into that in order to then later use it all together to put towards something. So love that. So it's both a confidence booster, especially when we talk about the imposter syndrome, but it's also something that you're actually going to utilize, which is fantastic. Now, actually talking about the idea of prospering from yourself, that definitely goes into the financial term. Now, this is over here on the Ten of Pentacles is sort of headspace to get into, because here's what's really interesting when it comes to manifesting. So when it comes to this, there is different techniques that you will use across your lifetime depending on wherever you're at. And it's perfectly normal for that to change and flow and all that good jazz. So what you're doing in this particular space, this is your headspace you're going to get into. This is an individual who has saved their money for a long time. And everyone around them sort of looks at them and expects them to have a lot of money. There's sort of an expectation around them because they go, well, they always save their money. Of course they have money. So you have simultaneously someone sort of getting in the scenario of knowing they have money because they've trusted they've done it for a long time. But also simultaneously, they have reflected back to them this energy of everyone around them going, of course they have money, but of course they have money through this type of mindset. And I want to be clear, I double checked with my spirit guide. I was like, oh, are they saving? And they were like, no. So again, it's not that you're currently doing that. And it's not necessarily that that's the goal. Not that save your money. That's always a fantastic thing. But try to take a second to meditate. And you're going to create a scenario for yourself in your head. You're going to think about every detail. And once you create that scenario, you're going to think of yourself as who's been alive for a while. And you're going to be connecting to this idea of you're going to see yourself every year putting in money. You're going to see it growing. You're just going to be really meditating on that concept. Then you're going to imagine you're always seeing people around you going, oh, of course they have money. They always have money. You're just going to see that always being put around you. And you're reflecting back on that idea. And you're just meditating in this scenario until eventually you're going to create an energy from this headspace you're in. And so the cool thing is you can repeat, if you have any epiphanies during meditation, sort of mantras that get you in this headspace, this is welcomed as well. But often I find when you create this scenario, you're going to create sort of a feeling and an energy. People often describe feelings and energies as one and the same, but we're trying to get beyond ideas like happiness, sadness, fulfillment. If you really if you're really familiar with meditating, you'll know that there's so many, like thousands of different versions of experiences about these concepts. So we're trying to go for more that type of energy or feeling that's sort of inexplainable. Like words almost make the concept too small and it's too specific to really describe. A good example is like, you know, waking up early in the morning and it's raining and you feel like you're the only person in the world. You might describe it that way, but it's got a particular sensation that is hard to just simply categorize in a terminology that could also simultaneously relate to something else, but the feelings are totally different. It's like that. So you're creating that energy to then sort of summon it up in you and think about it and feel it and resonate it when you want to sort of crack that code, if you will, and get into that manifestation. You're basically creating this energy of this. You're creating that energy within yourself to tell the universe, yep, this is who I am. I'm someone who everyone always expects has money. I expect I have money, but of course, I've been doing this forever, that type of headspace. So love that for you. And then last but not least, this is a very sweet and positive one. This talks about the idea that for a little while now, you've been feeling dispassionate, and now is the most perfect time for something to click. That's how it is sometimes. You know, no matter where you're at or who you are, it's like one moment you're feeling so excited about the simplest things, you know, you're really vibing with it. And the next, you're not quite sure why, and nothing really resonates. And then it does resonate again, and you're not quite sure what flipped the switch, if you will. Well, now is a perfect time for that switch to get flipped. And my spirit guide said, you really want to go out of your way to look for anything like a podcast, books, anything where you're sort of throwing at yourself something that you could potentially latch on to and get excited about. And again, it's not specifically books or podcasts. I mean, it can be. It's more just like you might hear something where they talk about information you get excited about. And again, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It's just something that you go to listen to it and you're pumped about it. It's the perfect time for you to actually get excited and interested in something. You're in the right headspace. It's the right energy of the time. Now is the time to try it in the way it didn't work before. So definitely go out of your way to throw things at you, so to speak, that will resonate. And you're basically trying things out. So definitely be active about it, proactive about it. Give yourself a chance. This is the time. So I love this for you. It's a lot of just fancifulness with the dancing and the pondering and the headspace you're in. It's very, is it contextual is the word? Maybe I'm using that word incorrectly. Oh well, whatever. We know what we're talking about. It's a vibe. So I hope you feel relaxed and excited and enjoyed this reading. I definitely enjoyed it. Please give this video a like, a comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'm wishing you the best. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And goodbye.